All right, what's going on, guys? And today we just hit 600 miles on the new DRZ4SM. So we're going to be doing the first oil change today. And I've already warmed up the bike, but before we get started, let's take a peek at the service manual and see what tools we'll need and the torque specs. All right, and here's what the service manual calls to do for the replacement of the oil and the oil filter on the new DRZ. I also wanted to touch on this. I thought this was interesting. The first oil change is at 600 miles. You replace the oil and the filter, and then the filter doesn't need to be replaced up until 11,250 miles. Now, we always replace the filter every time we change the oil, but that's what the manual calls for. All right, and the tools that we're going to be using to knock out this oil change is a ratchet, a 10, 12, 14 millimeter socket, a torque wrench, since we're going to be torquing things to spec, a drain pan, a oil funnel, and some rags, as well as your choice of oil. Well, we're going to be using the Mo tool, since that's our favorite oil, and it's a cool green color. Here we're going to be using the factory OEM filter. Here is the part number for that. All right, since we already started up the bike and let it warm up for a couple minutes, I'm going to pull the oil filler cap, and it is also your dipstick for the bike. All right, with the oil filler cap removed, we can go ahead and start draining the oil. So I'm going to start with the engine. It's a 14 millimeter socket. And what I like to do is kind of rotate and lift the bike up, get a little bit of the oil that might be settling in different parts of the bike, get a little bit more out. And kind of interesting, the drain plug on the engine itself does have a little magnet on the end to pick up some of the metal particles. All right, and we're going to go ahead and throw that bolt back in. You do want to replace the crush washer. All right, I went ahead and put the oil drain bolt from the engine back in just temporarily so I can drain the oil out of the frame. Oh, made a mess. All right, now we're going to go ahead and torque these two bolts to spec. For the back 14 millimeter bolt, it is going to be 15.5 foot-pounds. And for the front drain bolt, that is for the frame, it's a 12 millimeter socket, and that'll be torqued to 13.5 foot-pounds. But since this is our first oil change, it's the 600 mile one, we are going to be removing the oil filter and replacing it. So you will need a 10 millimeter socket. I also wanted to note, before putting in the new filter, inspect and make sure that the O-ring is still in the engine and it didn't get stuck to the old filter as you reuse it or install a new one. And then also take note that the arrow faces up when putting the cap back on. All right, and for the oil filter cap nuts that are 10 millimeter, these are going to be torqued to 7.5 foot-pounds. All right, so initially we're going to add 1.4 liters, and then we're going to start up the bike, let it run for a minute, and then add the rest, because the manual states that if you add more than 1.4 liters, could potentially overflow. So that's what we're going to do. All right, now I'm going to add 0.2 more liters to the bike. And we'll check the level. All right, and to properly check the oil, we're going to start the bike up, let it idle for 6 minutes, shut it off, let it sit for 3, get the bike vertical, remove the dipstick, clean it off, put the dipstick back in, but not screw it in, to get the accurate measurement for the bike's oil level. Perfect. All right, and that's how I do the oil change in the new DRZ4SM. I appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.